Welcome, friends. Welcome to Global Focus. On July 1, Japan's Prime Minister arrived in New Delhi for her first official visit as a Prime Minister. Just 2 days later, India and Japan announced their biggest package of security and economic agreements in years. So, what does this really mean? How will these agreements shape the future of India-Japan relations, and what impact would they have on the balance of power in Asia? To help us understand the bigger picture, Dr. Adityanjee, founder president of the Council for Strategic Affairs, joins me. Welcome, Dr. Adityanjee. Welcome to Global Focus.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sinha, for inviting me yet once again on Global Focus. It's an important topic that you are bringing. Let's have a discussion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, this topic is going around in the media actually. And the very first question on my mind is China. China's foreign ministry responded within hours, accusing some countries pursuing confrontation while claiming openness. How closely do you think Beijing is really watching this relationship? Dr. Adityanjee.
So, anything or any time India tries to develop relationships in strategic sense or geoeconomic sense with other countries, China does have a problem because China wants Bharat to be boxed in so-called South Asia. That is very important to understand where they are coming from. This bilateral visit was very significant because for the first time, Japan has agreed to review its own defense laws and collaborate with Bharat on defense co-production in Bharat.
Yes.
And there is some agreement to transfer the technology for what is called UNICOM, Unified Complex Antenna, for the naval ships kind of thing. Very interesting that if you look at Chinese media, I was reading some editorials in Global Times, which is Chinese government's English language mouthpiece. Though China had immediately from Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed very strong statements, the editorial in Global Focus was much more nuanced, and it was trying to blame actually Japan and Sane Takaichi, the Prime Minister of Japan, rather than putting the blame on Bharat. So it basically states that, yes, the countries have come to some sort of agreements, but their goals are totally different. And Bharat is more interested in, dealing with each country on its own value and maintain its strategic autonomy, although it does believe in multi-alignment. But it is Japan and Sane Takaichi who has a different motive, an ulterior motive. So they are kind of blaming the Japanese Prime Minister. And it is continuation of China's rhetoric, vitriolic rhetoric against Sane Takaichi since she became Prime Minister and mentioned about the security of Taiwan being important for Japan. And if your viewers remember, at that time, the Chinese ambassador to Japan, Wu Jiangao, basically said that the neck of this person should be cut off, talking about Japanese Prime Minister. And there was a lot of reaction in Japan at that point in time. Japan wanted an apology. There was some sort of regret or whatever. One of the former Japanese ambassador to Australia, who was very hawkish and was withdrawn, had basically made a demand that Chinese ambassador should be declared as persona non grata and should be expelled from Japan, but Japan did not do it. So that's the background we are talking about. Uh, China is very, very scared that burgeoning Bharat-Japan relationship in strategic sphere will start posing a challenge to Chinese hegemony
Yeah.
in Asia, all over Asia.
Okay.
China's goals are to become a rival to United States, achieve a bipolar world in the meanwhile, while it tries to become the most superior world power. So globally, it wants a bipolar world, but it wants a unipolar Asia
No.
where there's Chinese hegemony.
Yeah.
So they are sensing that the burgeoning Bharat Japan relationship will be a challenge to Chinese hegemony in Asia,
Mm.
especially the defense cooperation. So they were expected to respond in that particular way, but they also notice and they comment that India is also involved with Quad, India is also involved with BRICS, SCO. So India believes in maintaining strategic autonomy and independence, and India basically will take care of its own issues rather than ganging up against any other country, meaning thereby China. But Japan is not like that. Japan is trying to persuade India to join Japanese and US bandwagon to contain China. That was the gist. So that's very, very important. The other thing which I found very interesting in this Global Times editorial was that they were trying to create a divide between Japan and Bharat. So they highlighted a very interesting, from my perspective, minor issue that Japanese government brought packaged bottled water from Japan in the government aircraft and had told the delegation not to use the tap water in India because of risk of getting infections. So Global Times editorial basically says that this is an insult to Bharat, and the society, civil society in Bharat will understand and how they are behaving. They also note that Sane Takaichi referred to Prime Minister Modi as elder brother and he referred to her as younger sister.
Mm.
But despite that rhetoric, actual behavior is different and they were insulting towards Bharat. So it's very interesting observation if you look at the what is going on in their media. Of course, I don't follow Mandarin language media because I don't know Mandarin, but I look at the English language
Mm.
Chinese media. So Global Times is one, and People's Daily of China, the English language version I looked at. People's Daily did not have any comments, but it's basically Global Times that mention.
Mm.
So China is definitely worried because Bharat and Japan are also going to collaborate on critical minerals, rare earths, and also on advanced AI chips. So again, that challenges Chinese monopoly and Chinese hegemony because it will lead to Asian countries developing middle power alliances that China does not want. So that is the, in nutshell, Chinese response, but they are taking in a much more matured manner
Mm.
and displacing their anger at Japan and Prime Minister Sane Takaichi,
Mm.
rather not trying to antagonize Bharat or the Prime Minister of Bharat.
Okay, now moving beyond Delhi and Tokyo, how do you think someone sitting in Washington, Brussels, or Canberra read this summit?
It's very interesting that there's hardly any reaction in the US media,
Mm.
and there's no need for them to get perturbed. And US wants other Asian countries to share the burden of their own defense. That is what US has been saying. US has been gradually trying to withdraw from Asian theater.
Mhm.
So they want to focus on Western Hemisphere. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has said Western Hemisphere is more important to us. If you look at US President Donald J. Trump, he has been trying to remove the military assets from all other areas, including Europe, including Africa. In fact, recently they renamed the Indo-Pacific Command as Pacific Command, suggesting that they are no longer interested in the security and strategic stability in the Indo-Pacific. They will leave the Asian actors to take care of that because it's not a priority area. Simultaneously, in the May summit in Beijing between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, Donald Trump pretty much agreed to the concept of G2 when Xi Jinping took a class and told him about Thucydides' trap and how to successfully navigate that Thucydides trap without US and China getting into an actual hot war. So US has no problem if Bharat and Japan develop a strategic relationship. Of course, they would like to have some sort of veto power, but that's not going to happen, at least from Bharat's side. As far as Canberra, you mentioned, interestingly, there is a trilateral Japan, India or Bharat, and Australia.
Mhm.
And again, these three countries are part of Quad with United States.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, Quad started around 2007, has had three versions, and now Quad is almost sort of in suspended animation.
Mhm.
Last US administrations have not been very interested or enthusiastic about Quad, so we did not have a summit level meeting for Quad leaders during Biden administration, and we did not have during Donald Trump's second term. A year plus has gone by. This was Bharat's turn to hold a summit meeting of the head of states or head of governments. Hasn't happened. So one can see that, United States is withdrawing its military attention from Indo-Pacific theater and
Yeah.
focusing more on Western Hemisphere, especially the Americas. And the three remaining members of the Quad, it is up to them how do they implement and arrange for strategic stability and maritime security in the Indo-Pacific region. So again, I don't see any reason why Australian government would be concerned about burgeoning Bharat Japan security relationship. In
Mhm.
fact, one of the points in the 32-point joint statement is about that unicorn that I had mentioned.
Mhm.
Now, unicorn is a kind of, antenna system for the naval ships.
Yes.
And Japan has implemented in its stealth frigate called Mogami class stealth frigate. They have already manufactured 10 of them and two are in production. And they're talking about exporting them. So they have arranged some kind of bilateral agreement with Australia to co-produce the similar kind of frigate with maybe Australian specificities, but having the unicorn antenna on it. So Australia is already getting that same technology already earlier. Japan is also talking to Indonesia and some other Asian countries. So that's a good agreement. So Japan is trying to have a middle power alliance with other Asian countries. Mind you, Japan has a limitation. Since World War II, when it was defeated in World War II, it has been a client state of United States.
Yeah.
And you see with the new leadership, there is more assertive strategic posture in Japan, and that is to be welcome. And in that process, Sane Takaichi, who is also the political successor or political heir of Shinzo Abe, is taking this role very seriously and wanting to have greater security and geo-economic relationship with Bharat, and that is to be encouraged.
So this is not only about the Australia and the US. Even apart from these countries, in the world there is no reaction from any other quarter.
Well, because it does not concern anyone else, the only country that has alarmist viewpoint is China, and I told you why it is, China is taking that viewpoint
Yeah.
because they would not like Bharat to be in a stronger dominating position in Asia. They try to box Bharat into South Asian metrics and play Pakistan against Bharat. So that game is not going to be successful if Bharat and Japan have good strategic relationship.
Mhm.
So for no other country it poses a threat.
So look at 5 years from now. What would have to be true for us to call this genuine success rather than another round of joint statement? So what I mean is the what is so special about these academics? So what would be something that we'll remember in future, though this was signed in 2026?
There are
Uh,
two things that are very notable.
yeah.
One is bilateral trade
Mhm.
to be done in local currencies, yen rupee trade. There has been an agreement on that. When Japan and Bharat trade, they may not be using dollar. It may not be immediately possible, but Japan will make efforts to use bilateral local currencies in the bilateral trade. And that is a significant departure because again, Japan has been a client state of United States. United States does not want to give up dollar hegemony, and Donald Trump has given statements about anyone who departs from that will be severely tariffed and punished. But just like Bharat and Russian Federation are trading in rupee and ruble, Japan has agreed to do trade in yen and rupee. Bharat is having arrangement with 32 other countries for bypassing the dollar, and Bharat has UPI interface for international bank transfer. So that would be very significant, very important, although it looks like a minor issue. Second is defense co-production in Bharat with Japanese manufacturing technology
Mhm.
and possibly Indian software skills and AI skills.
Mhm.
So if we can give a jump start to defense co-production, you have to see, Japan's company Suzuki
Mhm.
came in Bharat around, you know, 1980s to build up Maruti small cars. And despite all the hiccups and what have you, it is the most profitable venture for Suzuki, the Maruti Suzuki collaboration. They're making more money in Bharat by, manufacturing Maruti and doing third country export as well as utilizing the local market. It's a small car, it's not a very expensive car, yet for Suzuki it's a money maker. So if Japan and Bharat can get their act together in the defense market and produce whatever you can do, I'm not itemizing the you know platforms or weapon systems. I think it'll be good for both the countries. We already have an example of Bharat and Russian Federation co-producing BrahMos, which is being exported. So it could be in the naval production or you know other areas in defense, but a beginning has been made. Third thing would be Japan's open acceptance that India is a rising power and they have to engage Bharat in all the spheres, including economic. So there were almost 150 companies. There were, I think, 130 or 149 memorandums were signed. $12.5 billion of investment immediately. Uh, Japan supporting Bharat in energy areas. So Japan has a scheme called Power Asia, under which Suzuki will possibly, work with Bharat to have 1,000 compressed biogas plants, an alternative non-hydrocarbon kind of thing, biogas plants. Similarly, Japan will support India's application for full membership in International Energy Association. And there's a long-term plan to invest 10 trillion yen, which is around $62 billion US dollars, into Indian economy. So it is open season for geo-economic collaboration between the two countries. Mind you, the two countries already have a comprehensive economic partnership agreement for last 12 years, but that needs to be upgraded. And some of the limitations were because of bureaucracy in Bharat that is so slow. So Japanese businesses were discouraged. But hopefully, with the single window clearance, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and Make in India initiatives, I think the investment by Japanese industrialists will jumpstart in Bharat for manufacturing.
Now coming to one fact I just wanted to bring out. In 2015, around 2015, I had a project from Maruti Suzuki. So I was sitting in the Maruti plant for 1 year or so. So that time I come to know by discussing, the staff were discussing, the sale has gone down, but the profits have gone up. What you mentioned, this is a money-making venture for Japanese. So that reminded me. I learned that time.
The sale may go down because there are so many alternatives for consumer in Bharat.
Yeah.
Maruti started as a kind of private sector monopoly. Remember, Bharat used to have Ambassador and Fiat, only two car options. That's the time when Maruti came,
Yeah.
and Maruti Suzuki captured the market, automobile market. But now there are so many options. There are Indian majors, Indian principals who are manufacturing cars and SUVs, Mahindras. There are a number of companies. The other thing that you need to see, that Japanese companies also invested technology and collaboration and money in the two-wheeler sector, whether it was motorcycles or Hero Honda or Kawasaki. And Prime Minister Modi also mentioned that, Prime Minister Sane Takaichi is a motorcycle enthusiast, but told that, Bharatiya industrialists are so successful that now they capture the market. So those are the realities, Sale may go down for Maruti, but Suzuki is making money, and that is what the industrialists who are investing money want, that they want to make money. So for Japan, using local production in Bharat, in Bharatiya factories, would be financially rewarding. So they need to disinvest from China and move some of their investments into Bharat. They have actually done some de-risking by investing in companies and factories in Malaysia and Vietnam and Laos and things like that. But they had been reluctant to do the same in Bharat because of Indian bureaucracy. So hopefully that thing will change, and it'll be a win-win situation. If Japan and Bharat can, produce weaponry, our defense exports are increasing. So that would be investment from Japan, and manufacturing technologies from Japan being transferred to Bharat will be a good thing.
Japan and India have been talking about deepening the ties for a long time. And Japan has moved cautiously on India in the past. So what is actually different about this summit versus the previous ones that promised similar things?
I have mentioned several times that one of the problems was Indian bureaucracy.
Yeah, right.
Japan is a business mercantile nation. And yes, the cultural and civilizational relationship has been for hundreds of years. And one of the Japanese ambassadors actually made this comment that 80% of the gods in Japan are from India. Uh, in Japanese temples, in our Bharatiya
Mm.
deities are worshipped, whether it is Saraswati or Ganesha, or they chant Sanskrit mantras with Japanese
Excellent.
sort of accent. So that is long-term thing. In fact, Shinto religion also has origins from the word Sindhu,
Mm.
which was Shinto. So they have been long-standing relationship culturally. But post World War II, Japan became focused on material progress, economic progress, because they were a defeated power. And Bharat at that time, 1947 onwards, took a socialist path. So we were in different camps. Japan was a client state of United States. United States helped with its reconstruction. Japanese industrialists took up the challenge and became the prominent, very, premier economic powerhouse in manufacturing and, of course, international trade. Now, their frustration with Bharat was that our system was socialist, there were too many laws, they could not acquire land for making factories, those sort of things. So that was the inhibition. And the modern Japanese were more focused on economic issues rather than cultural and civilizational issues. But things are changing now, as in Bharat, the laws are being restructured and it's being made easier to invest in Bharat for manufacturing. This is the 16th bilateral summit. We have a 2+2 dialogue framework also, in which Japanese defense minister and Japanese external affairs minister meet with Bharatiya counterparts.
Mm.
So that is another structured mechanism. So things are moving. They were slow because of peculiarities of
Mm.
bureaucratic system in Bharat. But hopefully now things will change, because you have a very dynamic first female prime minister who
Mm.
considers herself as successor to Shinzo Abe,
Mm.
and considered Shinzo Abe as her elder, and also considers Narendra Modi as the elder brother, and he considers her as younger sister. So there's a personal chemistry between the two of them. And I think it's high time
Yeah.
Japan realizes Bharat's potential internationally. There's a realization. They are talking about taking 500 AI specialists from Bharat to Japan by 2030. Previous Prime Minister Kishida had talked about getting 500,000 personnel from Bharat to Japan, because Japan has a shrinking population.
Mm.
Of course, it led to some backlash, racist backlash from Japanese population.
Mm.
But bottom line is that Japan has no other alternative. United States is not going to continue to provide security patronage. And China is very aggressive. So Japan has to have good relations with a rising power, which is Bharat, in Asia, to make Asia truly multipolar.
Mm.
Environment is ripe.
Mm. So if both countries move ahead on this path, what real benefits does it bring for each of them?
I think this would be a win-win-win situation.
Mm.
If Japanese businesses are making more money by producing manufacturing in Bharat,
Mm.
it will provide jobs in Bharat if there are more factories in Bharat
Mm.
with Japanese investment. Let me be very frank. We do need investment in Bharat.
Right. Do we need
You
it?
don't. We don't want investment only from, let's say, Europe and United States.
Mm.
And you want to restrict Chinese investment in Bharat because of security issues.
Mm.
So, all said and done, Japan has foreign exchange reserves of $1.1 trillion.
I see.
They have heavily invested in mainland China as well as in Taiwan, and of course in countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Laos, etc.
Mm.
So, if Japanese investment comes in Bharat, that would be good. Now, it's not just bilateral, it is also the relationship will be helpful to change the geopolitical scenario in Asia as well as in Africa. There's a project called India Africa Summit. We haven't had that summit for a while for various reasons. Similarly, Japan has a project called TRICAD, again focused on Africa. So, if Bharat and Japan focus on joint collaborative projects in Africa, we should be able to tackle the Chinese BRI challenge in Africa and harness some of the mineral and rare earth resources in Africa and not let China be the sole user of those mineral products. Similarly, in Bharat's neighborhood, look at Myanmar. China is supporting each and every party. They had invited Aung San Suu Kyi when she was in power. Xi Jinping had met with her. They were supporting the military junta. They are financing a number of rebel groups in Myanmar. They are developing some warm water ports in Myanmar. If Bharat and Japan build up factories or support the civil society in Myanmar and not look at the Western response about military junta ruling that particular country, it will be good for Bharat from security and strategic point of view. You know what is happening in Bharat's northeastern states? Individuals from United States purportedly supported by an intelligence agency from US were creating trouble, were importing along with Ukrainian people. 6 of them were arrested. Matthew and Dyke, you know, supplying drones to Kuki rebels, both in Myanmar as well as in Manipur. So there are projects going on about regime change and Christianizing Myanmar. Just like South Korea was Christianized by US missionaries, evangelical missionaries, and once this country gets Christianized, it will become hub of Western imperialism. So it is in the interest of both Japan and Bharat to counter both Chinese influence in Myanmar as well as US evangelical missionary agents who are in bed with Western intelligence agencies. I don't have to tell you which one. I can't hear you. Your sound is gone.
One question on my mind. This is a personal opinion. Our attitude towards work is very poor. So we don't have the work culture like the Westerners. So when the Japanese engagement increases with India, do you think it is going to redefine the work culture in India?
The situation in Bharat is somewhat complex. Why do people of Bharatiya origin become successful in West?
Yeah.
They have the potential, they have the skills, they have the gravitas, they have the intelligence, and they have the hard work if the system rewards. That does not happen in Bharat because of corruption, old boys network. So the same people who are struggling domestically in Bharat, once they move abroad, they give wonderful results. 30 multinationals in United States are headed by CEOs of Bharatiya origin. The problem comes that within the domestic environment in Bharat, you have trade unions, leftist lobbies, communist movements, so called Andolanjeevis, the perpetual agitationists who do not allow things to happen properly. And that system has to change. The central government needs to take a very, very stern attitude. Bharat and Japan are building the Vande Bharat high speed rail network. And what do you see? That agitators belonging to a particular religion are pelting stones and sabotaging the railway tracks. Anytime you have a new factory come up, trade unions will create a lot of commotion. It happened even in Maruti factory also. There were strikes. Uh, so when Japanese investment comes, they want a good working environment. That was not there in Bharat previously, but hopefully situation will change. If you see in Bengaluru, you have another Silicon Valley. Global majors are building up their offices, R&D centers in Bengaluru because a section of Bharatiya manpower has become very serious. These are educated people, the IT guys. They are willing to work hard and produce results. So it becomes cheaper for global majors to employ Bharatiya IT skill in Bharat rather than letting them fly to US or Canada or UK or Europe and pay them in the same way. So same thing will happen with Japan also. It's a matter of time. Yes, that is a domestic problem. We can't blame it on Japan. And at least the current government for last 12 years has done a lot to make Atmanirbhar Bharat, simplify the laws for investment, give single window clearance, have Make in India initiative. And as people get good employment in private sector, their attitude will also change. We lost your voice again.
No, that's not unmuted myself. So, according to you, how many years it will take before India can become a meaningful link in the semiconductor and critical mineral supply chain, rather than becoming being just a junior partner?
It's not a question of how many years. You have to make a firm commitment and utilize any and every opportunity in both these areas, and things are happening. There was a Foxconn factory making advanced chips in Bharat in Bengaluru. Now I see that Tatas have increased and surpassed that in Bharat. So the potential